Get ready to clean silo dwellers, because we have answers to some of your most burning questions. If you're like me, you finished the Season 2 finale of Silo with about 1 billion questions, so why can't we ask questions about that stuff? And with Silo being renewed for a 3rd and 4th season, I'm over here like I want answers. I need answers from that crazy flashback. The return of Juliet to Silo 18 includes that Solo's mother is still alive. There's a lot to talk about if you're new to my videos. This is a non-book spoiler, deep dive that relies only on slothing to guess what will happen next. So for those of you who have read the books, you can just make fun of me for everything. I get wrong also. If you're looking for another amazing mystery show on Apple, I am covering Severance Season 2, so be sure you're subscribed for that. Now let's get into our suits. It's time to clean, like Season 1's big reveal, that there are multiple silos. Season 2 drops a dirty bomb of its own, with the reveal that we might be going back in time to see how and why the silos were built. We'll meet 2 individuals who I believe might be main characters going into Season 3. And that's partly because of the amount of setup the writers do with these characters. Character number 1 actually doesn't have a name in the subtitles. He's simply referred to as Congressman and Congressman of Georgia's 15th District. This is interesting because as of 2024, Georgia only has 14 districts. So how can he be a congressman for a non-existent district? While they could have made this up for the show, I tend to think this hints that we're sometime in the near future to our own. Maybe it's the year 2030 or 2035, and Georgia's population has grown to warrant a new district. He is referred to as a freshman congressman. After all, the only other bit of evidence to suggest we may be in the near future is this sophisticated gear counter. It's likely being used to discern whether someone has particles of radioactivity on them, such was used in the dirty bomb. We'll soon hear about this bomb was allegedly detonated by Iran. However, we don't know how much of an impact it had. Washington, D.C., where the attack happened, seems to be on high alert. Helen, our second character, a reporter for a magazine called The Post, questions if there really was a radiological attack. Now, Silo has always been about hiding the truth, so while it said AN set off this bomb, that may not be the case. It's most likely a false flag attack for something far or more sinister. Perhaps it was even the U.S. itself. That GUR machine may even be programmed to always flash screen. As we'll hear, the congressman asks if it ever flashes red. You ever get a red? Not really. It's also very interesting that our congressman represents. Georgia nods to Georgia have been littered all throughout Seasons 1 and 2, from The Amazing Adventures in Georgia book to the song Moon River from 2011, which is all about lyricist Johnny Mercer's childhood growing up in Savannah. Furthermore, the author of Silo, Hoo Hoy, grew up in Georgia. This is where I think the silos were built. I don't think this is the last time we'll see Helen and this congressman. If she wasn't in any way interested in him, she would have dumped that Duck Pez dispenser as soon as she left. Remember that when the congressman initially showed up, he thought it was a date. Now he says he picked up this dispenser on a whim. But he actually put in some effort getting to know her, as the duck is the official mascot of the University of Oregon, where she went to school. I think these two get together, and she holds on to this Pez dispenser as a memento of the first time they met. He invites her to Georgia, where he is pivotal in the creation of the silos. Remember, he has his master's in engineering. Combine this with his poll as a congressman, and maybe he helped design or fund this giant project. Then some sort of attack happens, and both he and her were forced to be among the first silo dwellers. Hence the Duck Pez dispenser finding its way into the silo. The current holder of this dispenser is Sims's son Anthony, after having found its way from George and Juliet. 2 other things I want to bring up is The mention of the congressman bragging about what he did in New Orleans, since he has his master's in engineering and worked in the Army Corps of Engineers. I'm guessing this had something to do with the levees, or preventing flooding during a hurricane. This would make him a good candidate for building the silos, if he has a proven track record for building disaster initiatives. Helen also tells the congressman that the people deserve to know if there are plans to strike back at Iran. If this is indeed a false flag attack to blame Iran, it means there is some larger power at play that wants an attack on Iran to happen. But just how we get from this time period to the post-apocalyptic wasteland several hundred years later is still one of the mysteries the show has yet to reveal. However, I think that's what Season 3 will uncover. Season 2 had 2 separate storylines for 2 different silos. I think in Season 3 we'll follow one storyline that takes place in the past, and one with Juliet, and everyone back in Silo 18. Speaking of Juliet, it's taken her an entire season to venture back to Silo 18 in an attempt to save her people. If she hadn't gotten there in time, they would have opened the vault doors and died to the poisonous gas, believing that the outside world was safe, before Juliet's father heroically sacrifices himself in order to cut off Bernard's raiders from the rest of the silo. Juliet in Solo uncovers something called the Safeguard. This was something first mentioned in Salvador Quinn's deciphered code in episode 209. According to Quinn, the Safeguard was created by the founders, and in the finale, we get a bit more information on just what exactly this is: a pipe on floor 14 that can pump enough poison gas to kill everyone in the silo. So, who controls this Safeguard? At the end of episode 209. The mysterious voice known as the algorithm says it will have to initiate this Safeguard should Lucas tell anyone what he saw or heard at the bottom of the silo. The algorithm also uses the term "we," suggesting it could be multiple people, computers, or something else entirely. Whatever it is, seems to have technology more advanced than what we have today. Take, for example, the time the algorithm knew of the Down Deep's propaganda missile using security camera footage. In real time, it was able to discern a threat and notify Bernard. Now we just have to ask ourselves, is the algorithm a super advanced computer run by humans or its own entity entirely? Or maybe it's a combination of both. In episode 209, Bernard mentions there's a secret 51st Silo 1 that may be different than the rest. I theory this is the nerve center for all the other silos. It's the place where the poison originates and where the outside electricity pumps into it. Bernard, too, uses the plural form when talking about those in control of the Safeguard, leading me to believe there is some form of human contingent at play. Here Solo tells us that his parents found out where the Safeguard gas was being pumped. From floor 14. Floor 14 is where Judicial is located. Who's to say these gas vents here aren't connected to this pipe? It's also floor 14 that Solo and Juliet are about to investigate before they hear the explosion from Juliet's silo. Solo remembers his parents saying they were able to plug the pipe somehow, but by then it was too late. The rebels had taken over and the generator was flooded. This is why the sheriff says in 2011, "I'm all dead." Anyway, even more interesting is Solo stating that when his people first went outside, they didn't die. All those people went outside. They didn't die. Not at first. I take this to mean that the gas can be triggered outside as well. Well, but Solo's parents did something to stop it. At least temporarily. This leads me to Solo's mother. Solo mentions at least twice. I might add that he doesn't know what happened to her, which is code word for she might still be alive. Coincidentally, she worked in Judicial on the same floor where the Safeguard pipe is located. It's totally possible she is still alive, having found a way to the other network of silos through this pipe. However, this would make her quite old, And I think the more logical explanation is that Silo's mother died trying to cap this gas, and when she died, the poison gas got through. This would explain why the gas didn't kill the people. At first, this is a great plot point to pick up on. In Season 3, Solo will undoubtedly want to uncover what happened to his mother. And I think we'll see more as he ventures into his mom's old workplace on level 14. Poor Bernard, the man went from thinking he successfully quelled the rebellion to realizing his entire life was not only based on lies, but a total failure. After all I've done, sacrificed to find out it never really mattered. No wonder he chose to submit himself to the outside world after the countless deaths that occurred under his rule, including those he loved most. Now Bernard wanted to defend it, till the very end, that is, until Lucas Kyle whispers something into his ear. This is something the algorithm can't know. Lucas is telling him as it would trigger the safeguard. Whatever he tells him is also the reason Meadows and Lucas quit as Bernard's shadow, and ultimately why Bernard resigns and gives his post to Sims. The director makes an important note to get Ammon's reaction as Lucas talks to Bernard. So you better believe Sims and Amundsen will be on Lucas. So what did Lucas tell Bernard that he didn't already know? It may have something to do with the safeguard's poison and the realization Bernard, whose entire life was centered around controlling others, ultimately has no control himself. It's out of your hands. It was never in your hands, in my hands, anyone's hands. Lucas later tells Sims that the vault key didn't turn red because it's, quote, over the very people Bernard took orders from his entire life are going to leave him to die along with everyone else. Or at least, that's what Lucas implies. On several occasions, he talks about how nothing matters and that it's too late, even when he has a gun pointed at him. This is a man who was told something catastrophic was going to happen. I also have to say, it was a nice turn of character to see him stand up to Sims, when most of his life he's been seen as a coward. And now it's LED you hear. No, what's led me here is being a coward. Bernard takes his specially designed head of IT suit and ventures out the airlock to find Juliet. Even though she has a gun pointed at her, the two are really on the same side. Juliet even tells him that she may have figured out a way to stop the safeguard. This likely has something to do with blocking that pipe on floor 14. The door behind them suddenly closes, and I tend to think this was done automatically, but we can't be sure both she and Bernard become trapped as this was done automatically, but we can't be sure both she and Bernard become trapped as the incinerator. Burns, we've seen this back in Season 1. It's safe to say that Juliet survives, considering her suit is made from fire-resistance material. Firefighters wore in Silo 17. However, the same can't be said for Bernard, since we don't actually see him die. It's anyone's guess whether he lives and is horribly burned or perishes. We also don't know how long it will take the algorithm to implement the safeguard. Should that be what's happening? Is this something that takes days to prepare? Or is it as simple as flipping a switch and you're dead? The end of Season 2 also leaves us with the unknown of what lies beyond the door at the bottom of the silo. According to the algorithm, only 4 people have ever been allowed to enter: Salvador, Quinn Mary Meadows, George Wilkins, and now Lucas Kyle. I have to believe that what Lucas saw was a tunnel that connects all the silos together, or at least to one main silo that controls everything. It's here he would also learn of the safeguard and the poison gas. He may have also learned that their fate is not their own, and that they are merely controlled by others, a revelation that might have turned Judge Meadows into an alcoholic who yearned for the outside world where she could be free. It's also within reason that the algorithm, if it's advanced enough, could predict things that will happen in the silo, for example. Did the algorithm know That the rebels would trick Bernard? Whatever it is, it's made. Lucas kind of give up on life. Like, nothing he does really matters. The same can't be said for Sims, who has totally bypassed being it. Shadow, and has been promoted directly to head of it. But for how long? Who knows? After being given the vault key, he brings his wife Camille and son Anthony to the vault, only to be told to leave, so the algorithm can be left alone with Camille. Sims says his intentions are to save the silo, and the algorithm wants that too, but knowing the algorithm is willing to kill everyone in there. We can't take it at its word. Now the question is, what does the algorithm want with Camille? If there's one thing we know about her, it's that she's the one pulling the strings on Sims. She spent the entire season going behind his back to further her own agenda, and not necessarily that of the silos. And this is why I think she's the perfect candidate for the algorithm who would have known all this by watching Camille her entire life. While Sims is all about putting the safety of the silo, first Camille could care less, as long as it advances her position and that of her family. Perhaps the algorithm needs something from someone in the silo in order to initiate the safeguard and promises Camille a new life with her family in the secret silo in return. But in order to do this, she will have to betray the trust of her husband, who she promised in episode 207 that she would never go behind his back again. No more secrets. Now, did someone rip Juliet's suit here? Or was it like that to begin with? If we look at the glimpse of the suit we get in 209, you can kind of make out some of the rips here. But this all ties into the fake-out that Solo took her other suit. In reality, he was testing it for her to make sure was airtight. This is actually an insanely kind gesture, because if you recall a few episodes ago, Solo was petrified of going into the water, but now, because Juliet came back to save his life in 209, he's doing this as a gesture of love. Love between the two. In fact, this is the first time the two embrace the entire season in the next section. I want to talk about a few things that didn't necessarily fit into the sections I left in the timestamps. I love this poster of the figures holding hands in a circle. We've seen this all around the silo, but here being in an eye gives that eerie connotation that we're constantly being watched. I like Shirley's explanations on how the engineers by the generator would use secret hand signals as a way to trick Bernard and convey information without being found. Pete's sacrifice and final speech was an emotional reminder of his love for his daughter. He gave his own life, believing that she is still alive. And you better believe Juliet will be getting that watch back. And yes, I do think he is dead, with the silo's order seemingly in chaos. I'm assuming the pact is done with, which may allow for things like elevators to be used in the silo. It also begs the question, what new form of order will arise once Juliet gets in there and tells everyone what she knows? Season 2 has left us with tons of burning questions with the next season, and starting to focus on the bigger picture of who built these silos and why. But now I turn it over to you. What did you think of the season? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below.